Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022. This is a game that I did not have any intentions of playing in any capacity at first, beta or the full game. After being backstabbed, burned, beaten down, kicked to the curb, and scarred by how awful Modern Warfare 2019's multiplayer was, I have ever since then been on a hiatus with the Call of Duty series. I'm using the term hiatus rather than saying I fully quit COD because there is that part of me that isn't entirely done with the series. Part of me yearns to have an experience like the ones I had with this series when I was younger, but at the same time, I've not been in the mood to try Call of Duty again in the first place for some time now. It's ironic then that the Call of Duty game that sparked my interest in this series again is developed by the same people who scarred me with how awful their last game's multiplayer was. Whatever the source of this interest was, it drove me to download and play the Modern Warfare 2 2022 beta, which is what I will be talking about in this video. 8 hours of playtime, 18 ranks, and however many minutes spent navigating the menus to be able to customize my loadouts and to just play the darn game later, here are my thoughts and feelings regarding Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022. But before I talk about my experience and overall thoughts about the beta, I have to tell the story of how I was even able to play it in the first place because it's a bit of a doozy. September 18th, the day in which the beta would be open for all PlayStation players regardless of whether they had pre-ordered the game or not. After staying up until midnight the night prior and realizing the beta wouldn't be available for me until 1 p.m., I made sure to plan my day accordingly. I got up at 11 a.m., 2 hours before I could play, to give myself enough time to fully wake up and get ready. I patiently waited for the clock to strike 1, and shortly before then, I got my setup ready. I got my PlayStation 5 booted up, I got my Elgato 4K 60S Plus set up, and when the clock struck 1, I wasn't able to download it. So I figured it would just take a couple more minutes of waiting, and sure enough, 5 minutes later, I could download it. Once I began the download though, I realized, oh shoot, I probably don't have my PSN account linked to my Activision account. When it comes to Call of Duty, my go-to platform has always been Xbox, and I haven't had a reason to try and link my PSN account because of my break from Call of Duty after being burned by Modern Warfare 2019. My Xbox Live account was linked just fine, but no linked PSN account was present. So I go through the steps to link it, and it says that my PSN account is already linked to a different Activision account.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Naturally, my mind begins to go into overdrive as I start thinking why that's the case. Did someone hack into my PSN account without me realizing? Did I truly have another Activision account that I made years ago and I've just forgotten about it since? I go through the steps to link my PSN account again just to be sure, and I get the same error message. At this point, the beta has been fully downloaded and the clock is ticking for how long I'll be able to play it for this weekend, so I think to myself, rather foolishly now that I think about it, you know what, I'll deal with the account linking later. So I launch the game, go through the initial setup, and then I get presented with this. Now, I've blurred out this username for a reason, and you'll see why in a bit, but when I was presented with this, I got my answer to the PSN account link issue. It turns out that I did indeed, for one reason or another, make another Activision account years ago. So it would just be a matter of logging in with that email, unlinking the account, then linking it with my current one. Right? Well, the email that is registered for that account is a Yahoo Mail account that was created many years ago. Don't ask me why I created a Yahoo Mail account instead of literally any other kind of email account. I don't know what younger me was thinking back then. And I haven't used that email address for many years. On top of that, guess what happens to Yahoo Mail accounts that have been inactive for 12 months?
What's that?
So, in other words, there is no possible way for me to recover this email address, which means there is no way that I can unlink my PSN account because in order to unlink it, a verification code needs to be sent to the email address in order for the change to go through. And since I can't access that email, not only is my Activision account that's tied to my PSN account stuck with a forever dead email now, I can't change my Activision ID, which is the username that is displayed in the game. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. What is this horrific Activision ID? Take a wild guess as to how old I was when I created this username. Now, some of you might be saying, aw, come on, it isn't that bad. At least your username isn't something that would get you canceled on Twitter. Yeah, CODGamer334 probably won't get me canceled on Twitter, but the embarrassment of having that username attached to me, the embarrassment of knowing, not just thinking, knowing that everyone who would see that username would assume I'm 12 or 13, it's too much for me to handle. True gamers will understand why I would have had such an issue running around with this username in the Modern Warfare 2 2022 beta. I do not need anyone assuming I'm 12 years old and going, what the f is that username, when they see me. So yeah, I backed out of playing the Modern Warfare 2 beta for the first weekend because I couldn't change my PlayStation Activision ID. Call me a wuss all you want, I'm comfortable with missing out on the first half of the beta if it means I get to keep my integrity intact. Fast forward to September 22nd, where I decide to pre-order the game on my Xbox Series X, where my Activision ID on Xbox is a lot less cringy. On top of that, Microsoft is a lot more generous than Sony with how pre-orders work. Since Microsoft doesn't charge until about a week and a half or so before the launch of a game, typically around 10 days or so, I was able to pre-order Modern Warfare 2 2022, play the beta, and then cancel my pre-order as soon as the beta was over with there being no charges made. Whew, I told you it was a bit of a doozy. So then, after going through all of that to be able to play the beta, what was my experience with it like? I know that tons of other people covering the Modern Warfare 2 2022 beta have done it in this format, but there's a reason why it works and why it's used so often. I'm going to be utilizing the good, bad, ugly format for this video, but the three sections that I will personally be using will be good, mixed, and deal breakers. Good being the things that I liked about the beta, things that played, worked, and or looked great, things that ultimately add to the experience. Mixed will be for things that I either don't know how to feel about, things that are easily fixable or adjustable, or if worse comes to worse, things that I could eventually live with and get used to if I were to play the game long enough. Lastly, deal breakers will be dedicated to the horrific things about this beta, the things that absolutely cannot stand and need fixing if the developers want this game to be received well. These things are, as the name suggests, deal breakers, things that can turn someone away from buying the game. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it. Number one for the list of good things are the visuals and audio, with there being an asterisk next to the audio that I'll touch on later in this video. Don't worry, I'm not about to say that the footstep audio is perfect because it is not. Focusing back on the first point, this has usually been a strong point for Infinity Ward when it comes to their games, particularly with the color palette for this game when compared to Modern Warfare 2019. Modern Warfare 2 2022 is a lot more vibrant and colorful compared to the dull colors of the previous Infinity Ward game. Given that this is a beta, I'm sure that the visuals will get at least a fresh coat of paint by the time the full game comes out, which means the visuals will be even better by then. Minus things like the footstep audio, the rest of the audio design is really good too. The sound of helicopters in the air as they pass by, the cracks and whistles of bullets as they near miss you, the satisfying clicks and chambering of rounds when you reload, and more all combine to make the sound design for the most part excellent as well. The second thing that I consider to be great is the gunplay / gunfights. I know that this may be a controversial thing to put in the good section, as the time to kill in this game is ridiculously fast, but I personally feel that the general gunplay is well designed. The classic staples of Call of Duty gunfights are here, such as the weapon you're using, who gets their sights up first, whether someone has the high ground or not, etc. Assault rifles are your standard multi-purpose weapon. SMGs, I will admit, could use a bit of nerfing at range, particularly with the MP5 and the AK-74U, but they fit right at home in close range combat. Shotguns are beefy and super satisfying to use, and generally speaking, each weapon has its place in this game from what I was able to play. Now, this fast time to kill in conjunction with some of the mixed and deal breaker aspects of this game can combine to make for some frustrating moments, but just looking at the gunplay of this game on its own, it's great. The third thing that I liked from what I played are the kill / score streaks. Yes, you heard me right. I did call them both kill streaks and score streaks because now you can choose. No longer do you have to equip a perk in order to convert your kill streaks into score streaks. You can just choose. If you want kills and kills alone to count towards your streaks, go for kill streaks. If you want assist, objective play, streak destroys, or any other kind of score to count, switch them over to score streaks. As you'll see for all of my clips recorded here, I opted for the score streak system because I like to have any and all points to help me get my streaks. This is such a nice change that Infinity Ward made, and I have to give credit where it's due and thank them for allowing us to choose whether or not we want our streaks to be kill or score based. Remaining on the kill/score streaks, thing number 4 that I liked is that the streaks seem to be very powerful and useful. For as much as it's joked about how in the original Modern Warfare 2 the kill streaks were crazy strong, borderline overpowerful at times, I think that should be the way streaks are. Now, admittedly, I didn't get to see many of the higher end streaks during my time playing, and there's a reason for that. We'll be talking about that later, don't you worry. I primarily saw UAVs, care packages, and SAEs. Though, thanks to the invasion game mode where higher end streaks are slightly easier to get with the bots and the care packages that drop during the second half of matches, I was able to see things like the VTOL, chopper gunner, stealth bomber, and more all in action. And I noticed that when it was our side that had a powerful streak active, I found myself grinning and confident at the fact we had a powerful streak to help us out for a while. On the flip side, when an enemy had a powerful streak up, I was like, oh shit, I gotta go. I'm just gonna hunker down and not go outside. Or if I'm caught outside when that streak is deployed, it's either or yeah, it may suck to be on the receiving end of a powerful streak, but I feel like that's the whole point of a powerful streak. The player who got that streak should be able to feel the power of it, to go on an absolute tear with it. And only with a coordinated effort can a powerful streak be taken down fast before it can do any serious damage. I feel that Modern Warfare 2 2022 has nailed this aspect perfectly. Of course, not all the powerful streaks are going to do well on all the maps, and I'm not saying something like a chopper gunner should be able to shoot through walls or the ceiling, because otherwise, what would be the point of taking cover then? But when a high-powered streak can be super useful and effective, the player should be able to feel that usefulness and that effectiveness in full force. Lastly, the 5th good thing that stood out to me in the beta was the invasion mode. Invasion is a new mode introduced into Call of Duty as far as I'm aware, essentially acting as a small-scale ground war from Modern Warfare 2019. There are 20 players and 20 bots on each team, resulting in a 40v40 match. The goal is to accumulate a total score of 1,000 points. Each bot kill is worth 1 point, each player kill is worth 5, and each vehicle/streak destroy is worth 2 points. Though for the vehicle and streak destroys, it is possible that the more lethal/higher end the streak is, the more points are awarded for taking it down, as I was only ever able to destroy UAVs and counter UAVs in the mode when I played. This is the mode that I had the most fun with because Invasion takes away a lot of the sweat that the 6v6 modes make you produce when you play them. The bots themselves are effective enough that if you're not careful, you'll get taken down, but at the same time, they aren't veteran difficulty bots where they instantly snap onto you in the blink of an eye. With these bots being mixed in with other players, I found this to be perfect. Because the bots are a lot more laid back in comparison, you can have moments of having chill engagements while also contributing to the score of the game. As for the kill/score streaks, the bots do contribute to those, but not for every kill. Every player kill earns 1 kill or 100 plus score towards your streaks, but it's every 3 bot kills I believe that earns you 1 kill or 100 plus score towards your streaks. I think that this is the perfect middle ground between bots not contributing anything to streaks at all and bots just being used for farming streaks. This is the perfect compromise. On the note of Invasion being a smaller scale ground war, sadly, I didn't get a chance to try out Ground War itself when that was added, so I can't say from any personal experience whether or not it was good or bad, but from what I've seen, it appears to be a really nice large-scale mode. And that wraps things up for the things I found to be good in the beta. Now it's time for the mixed things. Again, for anything that I have here in the mixed category, it means that I don't know how to feel about something, that something in question is easily fixable or adjustable, or if worst comes to worst, I could eventually live with it and get used to it if I were to play the game long enough. The first thing that I have listed under mixed is the user interface. The UI was really confusing to navigate during the beta. Not only did I find it difficult to get to where I wanted to go for my first few times navigating through the menus, within certain options itself, it was confusing on what button presses would do what. Like when editing a perk package, for example, if I opened up a specific perk menu, that being like the general perks that you get to keep from the beginning of the game, your extra perk or your ultimate, if I opened up a perk slot and decide to back out since I actually changed my mind and I want to keep that current perk, rather than backing out of that menu and letting me pick to either hover over a different perk to change it or to back out of that perk package entirely, it just backed me out of the package altogether. So I had to reselect the perk package, then hit edit perks again, and it was just a very clunky experience to navigate through that menu as well as the other menus, all things considered. It's in mixed because I was eventually able to get used to it, but I would much rather have the menus be something that I can swiftly navigate through instead of needing to adopt an
"Oh shit, here we go again"
attitude every time I want to change or adjust something. Speaking of the perk package system, thing number 2 in the mixed category is the perk package system. This has been a pretty hot topic in the community with opinions varying wildly about it, and I can see why. The way that perks work in this game is that you start out by picking 2 basic perks that will be with you no matter what from start to finish. Then you get to pick a third, more powerful perk that can be earned in a match. Lastly, you get to pick your ultimate perk that features very powerful perks like Ghost and Focus, for example, that you also earn in-game. When you take these perks with you in a match, the extra and ultimate perks operate on a timer. The extra perk can be earned 4 minutes into a match, and the ultimate perk can be earned 8 minutes into a match. Though towards the second half of the Weekend 2 beta, these timers were adjusted to 2 minutes for the extra perk and 4 minutes for the ultimate perk. We're not sure what timers the extra and ultimate perks will operate on for the full game. However, things like kills, assists, destroying streaks, playing the objective, and more all shave off time from the timer. From my experience, everyone earned their extra and ultimate perks roughly halfway through a match. On one side, there's people who like this new system as it means that the more powerful perks don't show up until the latter half of the match and are therefore not as annoying to deal with. On the other side though, there are people who say that this perk change is unnecessary and that it not only takes away any meaning from the perks as you only have all of your perks for the second half of a match usually, but the first team to have everyone get their perks could usually get a pretty good advantage that turned into a snowball effect where the match remained one-sided until the end. For this one, I'm not really comfortable with giving any sort of final thoughts about it. I know that I should have some sort of final conclusion about it given that the beta is over now, but I really don't know how to feel about it. Because on the one hand, I can see the appeal of this system and I can see what it's trying to do. Like other people have said, it means the more annoying perks to deal with like Ghost aren't active until the second half of a match usually. But on the other hand, I have my gripes about this system because it can create that snowball effect where whichever team gets the head start maintains that advantage throughout the entire match. Thing number 3 that I'm putting in the mixed category are the maps. I'm putting them here because I really don't know how to feel about them since it all depended on the lobby I was in. The maps all played very differently depending on if the skill-based matchmaking gave me by one allotted good game of the day, with most of the lobby rushing around like how traditional Call of Duty players do, or if it's the nowadays normal sweaty lobby with people taking it super slow, hiding in windows and buildings, etc. Due to this, I can't really say which maps are better than others. It's all just sort of a blur to me at this point, honestly. How people play casually versus competitively on a map can vastly change how it plays, and because of how the matchmaking system works in this game, combined with me only having 2 days of the beta under my belt, I can't in good faith give any sort of yes-no answer to the maps on whether or not they're good. Lastly, number 4 in the mixed category is dedicated to how the weapon unlock system works. This is easily what tripped players up the most during the beta, and you bet it tripped me up for the first hour or 2 of my time playing the game. To keep a long story short, certain weapons can be grouped together in a family of sorts, and in this family of weapons, you have to use weapons to unlock other weapons. For example, you have to use and level up the M4 in order to unlock the 5.56 Icarus and the F-TAC Recon. You then have to use and level up the 5.56 Icarus to get the M16, and you have to use and level up the F-TAC Recon to unlock the FSS Hurricane. On the one hand, I do like how this game gives players a reason to want to use new weapons to further progress through the available list. It gives some weapon variety there. On the other hand though, I don't like how it forces you to need to use a particular weapon in order for you to get the next one. Let's say say that a weapon like the M16 had another weapon after it. I know it didn't have a new weapon after it in the beta, but let's just pretend for a minute. The M16 from what I played sucked. Now, if there was another weapon that could only be unlocked after reaching a certain level with the M16, this would require me to slog my way through the ranks with that thing when it's not an enjoyable weapon to use. I know that using a weapon that didn't have a weapon lock behind it as an example may have been odd, but I wanted to use the M16 in particular because that weapon was particularly bad to use in the beta, and I wanted to emphasize how if weapons are locked behind other weapons that suck, this progression system is not going to be fun to work with. On top of how unenjoyable the core gameplay can get at times, being forced to use a weapon that sucks on top of that wouldn't be fun for anyone. In short, I like the idea of being incentivized to use a wider variety of weapons. It's just that the way new weapons within a family are acquired, it needs to be reworked, I feel. At last, here we are, the deal breakers. I'm not going to beat around the bush with my wording here. These are the things about the game that are game-breaking, asinine, horrific, things that need to be fixed and changed ASAP in order for the game to play and be received well. Number 1 on this list is the minimap. In older Call of Duty games, they had what is now referred to as the classic minimap, where if you fire an unsuppressed weapon, you would be pinged on the enemy's minimap for as long as you were firing. This allowed players to get a rough idea on where the enemies were, but it wasn't anything that would result in the player firing their weapon being tracked all the time. This resulted in the game being a lot more fast-paced since players got that intel on where the enemies were in conjunction with their current surroundings at that moment. It made them more confident in being able to make a push on an enemy or to cross a chunk of terrain, to give a second example. If players didn't want to be pinged on enemy minimaps when they fired their weapons, they could throw on a suppressor to their guns, which meant that they no longer showed up when firing. However, suppressors often reduced a weapon's effective range as a trade-off, meaning that players would need to make that tough call on whether they wanted to sacrifice weapon range for remaining off the radar when they fired, or keep that effective range while being pinged on the radar when they fired. With Modern Warfare 2 2022's minimap, that no longer happens. The only way that enemies show up in any form when firing unsuppressed weapons is with this compass at the top of the screen. This compass is nowhere near as effective as a minimap though, only showing where the enemies are in relation to the degrees on a compass, and the larger the red dot, the closer the enemy is, the smaller the red dot, the farther away an enemy is. This only gives us the general heading and distance of the enemy, nowhere near as precise as it needs to be in order for the game to flow well. Throughout my time playing, I ran into countless matches where people were held up in corners and windows because they were too scared to move thanks to not being able to tell where the enemy's general locations were, and I'll admit, my hands are dirty here too. I camped the hell out of some spots. But the thing is, a lot of times, that was the only effective way to play. As soon as I dared to step outside from within the building or moved from the corner I was in,
hostile UAV in the area.
and to top it all off, the leadership at Infinity Ward is sticking with the current design of the minimap. In the Modern Warfare 2 Beta Weekend 1 blog post they made after the first weekend of the beta ended, this is what they had to say in regards to the minimap. Currently, in the Modern Warfare 2 beta, we only show enemy player dots when a UAV is active. The design reason for this is that we do not want to punish players for firing their weapons. We also want players to actively search out the origins of a gunshot versus just traveling directly to where the dot is on the minimap. We continue to gather feedback on how the game is playing in regards to this topic. Now, let's dissect this statement before I punch my computer screen in anger. The design reason for this is that we do not want to punish players for firing their weapons. If Infinity Ward truly thought that red dots on the minimap were this much of a detriment to the core gameplay experience, how come they didn't remove it sooner? Why didn't they remove it for Ghosts? Why didn't they remove it for Infinite Warfare and Modern Warfare Remastered? Why did they only first remove the red dots in Modern Warfare 2019? I call bullshit on this statement. The main reason why they're doing this now is to protect the little Timmies who are going to be playing this game. Once again, Just like with Modern Warfare 2019, they're catering to the new players so hard here that the more experienced players are being left out to dry. This also raises the question then, what's the point of equipping a suppressor? Suppressors back in older Call of Duties would reduce a weapon's effective range, but they would make it so that the player doesn't show up on the minimap when firing. And if a player was recklessly firing their unsuppressed weapon, enemy players would be able to track them down more easily. The new players would have to learn the skill of trigger discipline. In other words, they would need to get better at the game. Being able to see the red dots on the minimap also allows players to have confidence to move. Yes, players can use the minimap and red dots to get a general idea of where the enemy is at, but by the time the player gets there, they don't know where the enemy could be. They could be in the exact same spot, or they could have moved since then. This is worded like the red dot on the minimap is constant and that wherever a red dot is, a player is guaranteed to be at that exact position when someone gets there. When in reality, it's very possible that the enemy player could have moved by then. And in case the leadership at Infinity Ward who is directing the people in the trenches on how to design the game wants proof of that, they should maybe play their own damn games? Joe Secot, however you pronounce your name, get your head out of your damn ass and listen to the community. I know there are certain aspects about this game that are primarily under Activision's control and not yours, such as with the skill-based matchmaking system, but something like the red dots on the radar are surely something you're the one making the calls on. Please listen to the community on this. I promise you, I and the other Call of Duty players promise you, if the minimap is returned to how it used to work, the pacing and overall gameplay as a result will improve significantly. The second thing that I am putting in the deal breakers section of this video is the footstep audio. Remember how I mentioned that the footstep audio was nowhere near perfect when I talked about what good things the game had going for it? What I meant by that is it's actually so broken that it needs adjusting right away. Right now, the footstep audio is way too loud for people who are sprinting and rushing around. Combine that with the way that the minimap operates, and it's no wonder that a lot of matches are filled with people setting up shop in corners and windows, because as soon as they hear the stomping of a rusher who made the fatal decision to move, it's just a matter of tracking the footstep audio and waiting for the right moment to strike. The footstep audio is so loud that people are actually able to fully track you from when they first heard you to when you're in their sights. It's that bad.
We've secured the lead.
Changing max.
Infinity Ward said that they had made footstep audio changes for weekend 2 of the beta, but either those changes never occurred or they need more fixing, since I was able to eliminate plenty of enemies from footstep audio alone. And I was also killed plenty of times during the beta because my character's combat boots for some reason are made out of bricks. At least Infinity Ward seems to be more open to change this particular aspect of the game, but as of this video, as of my experience with the beta, the footstep audio was bad enough to where it's deserving to be labeled as a deal breaker if it's left in its current state. Speaking of footsteps, number 3, Dead Silence. Right now, Dead Silence is operating the same way that it did in Modern Warfare 2019, where it's a field upgrade and not a perk. Plenty of other people have said it, and allow me to chant the chorus here as well. Dead Silence does not work as a field upgrade. Dead Silence as a perk would not only expand options when it comes to creating a loadout, but it would also allow players to be more confident when rushing, as people with Dead Silence know that they won't be heard for miles away. Dead Silence has never usually given players the ability for their footsteps to be completely silent. It has usually reduced the noise of their footsteps, but it's rarely ever made them entirely silent. An alert player could still hear someone with Dead Silence, just not from as far away and not as accurately. We're not asking for Dead Silence to entirely eliminate a player's footstep audio, we're just asking for that footstep audio to be reduced. Infinity Ward has stated that they want the game to be playable for every player, accommodating all playstyles. But right now, the campy playstyle is the one that's being accommodated the most once again. The loud footstep audio gives the campers another reason to stay put while punishing the rushers for playing how they want to play. Infinity Ward is failing at their objective of accommodating all playstyles. Switching Dead Silence from a field upgrade to a perk will be one step in the right direction of truly accommodating all styles of play. Or, you know what, Infinity Ward, if you're so desperate to keep Dead Silence as a field upgrade, fine, you know what? Keep it that way. Just update the perk so that we don't make a f***ing microwave sound when we activate it. When you activate Dead Silence right now, it is a beacon to anyone nearby. Hey, I have just activated Dead Silence. I am approaching your position. Be ready to kill me. How the hell anyone thought this was a good idea baffles me. Number 4 in the deal breakers are the disbanding lobbies. Interestingly enough, Infinity Ward actually acknowledged this not too long ago, which came as a total shock to everyone. Infinity Ward has proven that they're content with putting in earplugs when it comes to community outrage on specific topics, so to see them not only acknowledge the fact that the disbanding lobbies are a thing, but to talk about potential changes to the system as well is quite shocking. Despite this acknowledgement though, I'm still keeping the disbanding lobbies in this deal breaker section because it's looking like they're going to stay here in some way, shape, or form. The biggest reason why disbanding lobbies are so detrimental is because it rips away the social aspect of Call of Duty. A core part of Call of Duty used to be the fact that you could talk with everyone else in the lobby if they had mics in. Of course, there's the usual trash talk that would occur back in the day, and I even heard some trash talk myself when playing the beta. But there's also a bright side to this core part. In the midst of the trash talking that's common with games like these, legitimate teamwork and friendships can be found here too. Back in the day, it was more common than you may think for someone to encounter a total stranger online in a Call of Duty lobby, play with them, have a good time in that same lobby with them over multiple matches, they decide to send a friend request to that person, they hop back on the next day with that person, and before they know it, they're friends with that person. Friendships have formed over people meeting each other in Call of Duty lobbies, and because they were able to get to know that other person through staying with them through multiple lobbies, this is what allowed them to be comfortable with getting together online to play again later. Even if no friendships are made, it can be super entertaining to chat and mess around with other people online. There's a reason that search and destroy game chat videos were popular with older Call of Duties back in the day, because search and destroy actually forced people to be in game chat. They couldn't be in a private party chat. It may seem weird by today's standards, but back then that was the norm and it worked really well. Outside of meeting people and potentially making new friends, lobbies that remain together at the end of a match would work wonders for players' favor if they found themselves in the perfect lobby, also known as the God lobby. We've all had that one lobby that was perfect for us back in the day. Perfect connection, perhaps you were lucky enough to be the host for that lobby. Perfect enemies that allowed you to use your skills that you've acquired to decimate them. Perfect teammates that knew what they were doing. We've all had that lobby. Nowadays, if you get a great match, not only will that lobby disband and therefore you'll never get that lobby again, you'll be thrusted into a de facto CDL tournament style game where everyone is playing as if there's money on the line thanks to deal breaker number 5. If I had to pick one deal breaker that ruins this game on its own, the one deal breaker that even if all of the other deal breakers were fixed, this single one would still prevent me from buying this game, that would be the skill-based matchmaking. This has been a topic talked about to death over the past 3 years, but with the skill-based matchmaking in full force even in the beta, we have to talk about it once again. For anyone unaware, skill-based matchmaking is a system in place where the matchmaking system puts you up against people of similar skill to you. The way the system does this, in Call of Duty at least, is that it looks at your performance from your previous matches and puts you against people with similar stats accordingly. For instance, if you went on an absolute tear in the last match, the skill-based matchmaking will see your stats and go, wow, this player is good. Time to up the difficulty for them. The skill-based matchmaking then puts you against people who have similar stats where you may end up getting your ass kicked that round because the opponents are a lot tougher, treating the public match like it's a CDL match. The skill-based matchmaking then looks at your performance from that game and goes, ooh, maybe we should tone it down a bit for the next game, and then you're put into a lobby full of other players with similar stats as your previous game just now. Basically, whatever your skill level is, that is who you will be facing regularly in multiplayer. This skill-based matchmaking system ruins whatever casual nature that Call of Duty once had, at least for players who get good at the game, and it also destroys any incentives to improve and get better. Think about it. When you get better and better at this game, your reward is tougher opponents. In the context of something like a ranked playlist where there's a rank, league, elo score, something to show off your stats and skills, this kind of system makes sense. So in a ranked competitive playlist, it makes sense for this kind of skill-based matchmaking system to be in place. When this kind of a system is in the casual playlist of a Call of Duty game though, where there is no indication of your skill, no rank, no league, no elo score, what's the point of this system then? Oh, right, to protect the little Timmies who are afraid of facing off against better opponents. Look, I get why for some people it's intimidating to think about potentially facing off against better opponents, but guess what? Back in the day, that's how Call of Duty worked. In any casual playlists, older Call of Duties used to still have skill-based matchmaking, just heavily toned down versions of it. There would be the protected bracket of players who are either brand new to Call of Duty, brand new to first-person shooters in general, or any gamers who suffer from a disability. Then there was the general bracket where you could have a melting pot of players in terms of skill in the same lobby. This meant that lesser skilled players would see better players, want to get better at the game, become better at the game, then have their turn demolishing the lesser skilled players. Those lesser skilled players would see that, want to get better, and the cycle begins anew. In other words, older Call of Duty games rewarded players for getting better at the game by allowing them to decimate lesser skilled players. If those lesser skilled players wanted their turn at being the ones on top, they had the motivation to get better. There was a reason to get better at the game. Nowadays, there isn't a reason to get better. Modern Warfare 2 2022 might as well just have some sort of ranked play and no quick play / casual play options here. Even if you buy this game as a lower skilled player and enjoy your time with the other lower skilled players, as soon as you dare to get good at the game, the skill-based matchmaking system kicks you to the curb because now all of a sudden, this game isn't meant for you, since if you get better at the game, you're no longer a part of the game's target audience. Now then, for as much as Infinity Ward has earned some rightful shit being thrown their way, we do have to take a step back and recognize that the skill-based matchmaking system is forced by Activision. Even though this example is a couple years old now, Michael Condrey, who used to work at Sledgehammer Games, commented on the skill-based matchmaking debacle when it was present in Modern Warfare 2019, stating that things like skill-based matchmaking are, for the most part, not controlled by the developers. The developers may be the ones to ultimately program it into the game, but the specifications of what they are programming are set by the publisher, in this case, Activision. And if we take a look at this situation through the eyes of a greedy, sexist, leprechaun ears-looking ass CEO for a minute, it would make sense for Activision to mandate that a skill-based matchmaking system that benefits the lower skilled players, since if the lower skilled players are the core audience of COD, they're the ones to satisfy since they'll be the ones most likely to buy the bundles from the shop and sing the game's praises. Except that logic is flawed because guess what? People who have been with Call of Duty for a while now, the people who are getting shafted by the skill-based matchmaking system since they're not a part of the target audience, have the largest reach with thousands or millions of people following them on social media. These people will have a much larger reach when it comes to telling people whether or not to buy this game compared to the average person who may only play a couple of times a week and may only have a small circle of friends. Once again, they are catering to the lower skilled players so hard here that the more experienced players are being left out to dry. Unfortunately, these deal breakers alone were enough to have me cancel my pre-order. In fact, I want to show you the exact moment when my mind broke. The exact moment in time when I knew that this was not going to be an enjoyable experience for me if I bought this game.
We've secured the lead.
Changing max.
On your six.
Most of the deal breakers can be found in this clip. I couldn't tell where the enemies were without there being a UAV in the air. This player who was camping was most likely doing so because they couldn't get reliable estimates on where enemies were without those red dots on their minimap. I was punished for moving around thanks to the asinine footstep audio, and the skill-based matchmaking had me facing off against people who were treating this game like it was a CDL match. As soon as I deleted the open beta, I canceled my pre-order right after that. My hiatus from Call of Duty shall continue on, as I can already tell that Modern Warfare 2 2022 will not be an enjoyable experience. I'm not about to slug through matches day in and day out just because it's a Call of Duty game. Only when Activision and the developers actually listen to our feedback and get their heads out of their asses. Only when Activision and the developers make the gameplay decisions with both new and returning players in mind. Only when either the skill-based matchmaking system is toned down or there are actual incentives for wanting to get better at the game. Only then will I consider buying any sort of Call of Duty game in the future. I know it may not sound like it, but I desperately wanted to like this game. You all have no idea how painful it was for me to play this beta, get violent PTSD flashbacks to Modern Warfare 2019 with the incompetent leadership at Infinity Ward and the intense skill-based matchmaking forced by Activision, still give the beta an honest 2-day shot regardless of that, and still come to the conclusion that it's best if I continue my hiatus with the series. I want to be excited for another Call of Duty. I want to actually enjoy my time playing the game. I don't want to play Call of Duty games for the sake of yelling into my microphone on YouTube, picking apart the ugly details about it. I already have enough negativity and stress thanks to college. I don't need to increase my blood pressure even more by playing a Call of Duty game that's not fun. On the one hand, I'm glad that I was able to get my hands-on experience with this beta to truly know whether or not I should get this game, but on the other hand, it hurt to come to the conclusion that I did. After the flash of rage that drove me to delete the beta, the realization that damn, this isn't a fun game to play set in for the rest of my night. I'm not going to act like I was so saddened by this that I couldn't function, because I was and am currently getting through my days just fine, but I would be lying if I said that it didn't hurt a little. Ultimately, the decision on whether or not you get this game is up to you, but I would suggest that you stay as far away from this game as you can. Having played this beta, having seen that the developers are still resistant to change, having experienced what it's like to sweat constantly without any tangible reward to show for it, and having experienced the feeling of being left out to dry in favor of the newer players once again, I am not going to be buying Modern Warfare 2 2022. Well, that was a depressing video to watch towards the end, wasn't it? I'm sorry that I got loud and ranty, if ranty is even a word, towards the end there, but like I said, I can't see myself enjoying this game. Resistant developer leadership, skill-based matchmaking that means I would need to treat each match seriously, like a CDL match, and not, you know, casually, as a casual playlist should do, and generally speaking, the game having a slow pace like in Modern Warfare 2019, I can't bring myself to go through an experience like that again. I'm not about to hasten the age in which my hair turns gray from playing this game any longer. Although nowadays I've been finding myself playing games more so for YouTube video purposes, whether that be reviews, essays, or just as background gameplay for some sort of different topic, I still ultimately buy and play games to have fun. Even if there was a content goldmine in Modern Warfare 2 2022, the fact the multiplayer was the way it was in the beta, and the fact that the multiplayer will most likely be that way when the full game launches, I don't care how much the game would hypothetically boost my YouTube analytics, I'm not about to put myself through this for the sake of it. Okay, I need to stop before I go off on another rant, otherwise we'll be here all day. Before I sign off here though, I do want to switch to a positive note real quick and give a shout out. Huge thanks and shout out to @Zusserix for letting me use part of one of the commissions he did for me a while back for the thumbnail of this video. I went ahead and took the head of my Fursona Thunder from this battleship commission Zusserix did a while back, stuck Thunder's head onto the head of a Shadow Company contractor from Modern Warfare 2019, and bam. And for anyone wondering, I did make sure to get his explicit permission to use part of his artwork in my thumbnail here. If you're interested in getting a commission from him, I would strongly suggest that you consider him when he opens. He specializes in military stuff, stuff, and from what I have seen and commissioned, his work is among the best for some really awesome prices. Again, shout out to @Zusserix. Many thanks, dude. That brings us to the end of this video. What do you think of the Modern Warfare 2 2022 beta? Are you also going to refrain from getting this game? Are there any other good, mixed, or deal breaker things about this game that I left out here? Or if you are going to persist and get this game still, what is it that's having you keep your pre-order? With that being said, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, or at least enjoyed it as much as you could with how ranty it got towards the latter half there. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, drop a comment, and if video game reviews and essays are a type of content that you enjoy here on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and be sure to hit the bell icon to receive all notifications for future uploads. Until next time, this is Thunderous Fulf, signing off.